Thank you. We are ready. Debbie, are you ready?
Yes, ma'am. Thank
Okay.
you very much. I was looking at the analysis table for the current site and building status for both the elementary and middle and high schools, and I noticed a calculation error on them.
Oh.
Okay, it looks like on the square feet per student, what was done was they added up all the square feet per student for each of the schools, or instead, they needed to take the total square feet and divide it by the student population to get the correct number.
Got it.
I do have copies for everybody, and I'll leave a couple copies for the Gibraltar speakers.
Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you, Debbie.
You're welcome.
Do you have more to speak on? We can pass that out, so you don't have to do that. We don't have to
Well,
sneak
I
in on your
was,
time.
But there are other things that maybe probably want to leave that for, I guess, please. These are, we need to, there are two for the Gibraltar ones.
Thank you, John.
And then these are the, for the middle and elementary, middle and high school.
Debbie, thank you so much for always looking out and checking things over and letting us know. We really appreciate your attention to detail on that.
Yes, thank you. Okay.
I do not have anyone else signed up for first call for citizens' comments, but I wanted to take this moment to make sure that's correct. Okay, moving on. Thank you, John. Moving on to our consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second that.
I have a motion and a second on our consent agenda. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed or abstain? Moving on to new business, our personnel report. Michael Cox, welcome.
Good evening, administration. Request approval of personnel report this evening, no professional leave report to add.
I move approval of the personnel report.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the personnel report. Do we have any questions or comments from the board?
Just as usual, I know that you've been thinking about next year for months already, but how are we standing? Just give us a little update.
We'd like to have some special ed individuals move into the town, looking for some elementary positions, but we will be ready for August the 7th.
They can't hear you. Can you speak into the microphone? And he said special ed and elementary.
Special
position.
ed and elementary are areas that we have available. Looking for any of those opportunities, EAs, bus drivers, anything would be particular on that, but we will be ready one way or another come August.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments from board members? Seeing none, all those in favor of the personnel report signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstain? Thank you.
Thank you.
Before you go
I'm
to the
sorry.
next agenda item,
Yes.
we would like to point out that in that personnel report that you just approved, Scott Moore will be serving as the new Terre Haute North principal. He's currently not here because he's supervising a baseball game with the sectional championship.
May we pause for a moment? I just got a message that the feed went down. No, are we good? Okay, thank you. Moving on to our next docket item, the May accounts payable docket. Donna Wilson, welcome.
Good evening. The Board Finance Committee met last Thursday evening to review the May interim claims docket as included in your packet this evening. The following items were pulled for further review. Gibson Tel Data, Inc., $31,390.14. That's the new corporation-wide upgraded voicemail system. Mr. Miller did form a committee to review features available, and the system purchase was based on that committee's recommendation, paid from the Education Fund Technology budget. Breathe for Change Incorporated, $999, in partnership with Union Hospital. That's the Fitness Challenge Program, and that was for yoga instruction, paid from the CDC grant fund. Ivy Tech Community College, $16,070.41. That was fall 24 and spring 25 tuition, books, and fees for dual enrollment tuition at Ivy Tech for 17 certifications, and those were for the agriculture program. Ken Amos, $607.50. That was neat planning and STEM workstation development for the 25-26 school year. Ken is a retired CTE instructor from Honey Creek, and that was paid out of the education fund, I believe. With that, I present the accounts payable docket for your approval.
I'll make a motion to approve the accounts payable docket as presented.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any comments or questions from the board?
I'll just do the usual. Thank you for everything your team does, and a reminder that the Board Finance Committee is public, and actually Deb is usually our attendee, and we appreciate that, but I welcome anybody to come join us.
And again, after that meeting, Donna and her team sends an email to the entire board of any questions or comments that were raised during that finance meeting. So the entire board is aware of those questions, and we receive explanation moving forward. So thank you, Donna, and your team.
Welcome.
We have a motion and a second to approve the May accounts payable docket. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose or abstain? Thank you. Next on the agenda is the recommendation on the proposal for cafeteria tables. Donna Wilson.
As you know, the board recently granted the administration permission to solicit proposals to replace cafeteria furniture, much-needed cafeteria furniture, at Terre Haute North, Terre Haute South, West Vigo Middle High School, and Honey Creek Middle School. Kathy Lady, purchasing manager, met with the administrative and custodial staff representatives of each of the affected buildings in order to gather information and reach consensus among the schools so that furniture could be specified that was easily interchangeable between buildings, was easily moved for cleaning, set up and takedowns as spaces are used often for a variety of events, and was durable as we recognize the extensive use of this furniture in that cafeteria space. The specifications were released in an RFP that was advertised in the Tribune Star and on the VCSC website, and local vendors were mailed the notification. On May 27th, we received one response to the RFP from Educational Furniture. After review of the submission from Educational Furniture and further investigation into other purchasing opportunities through school cooperative purchasing networks, Educational Furniture was still found to have the most competitive pricing based on the product specified. Therefore, tonight, we recommend the board approve the purchase of cafeteria furniture from Educational Furniture at a cost of $465,929.63, which includes the assembly and installation if necessary, based on schedules in those buildings. The furniture will be in place for the start of the 25-26 school year.
Is there a motion and a second to open discussion and questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation for proposal of cafeteria tables.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
Are some of these tables, most of these tables, original tables when the schools were built?
I think they
You're
are at
kidding.
North and South.
No.
I can't speak about West. Maybe Mr. Easton knows if those were original to the building. They'd be
He's
really old if they
smiling,
were.
yeah, they is.
But if you go into any of our cafeterias, you'll see a mixed-matched assortment
Yeah.
of tables that have been moved around. These were specified in a neutral color. They come with 2 seats that are interchangeable, and we could have gray or black seats, and they could be moved and used amongst our buildings.
We got our 50 years out of them, that's
We've
great.
gotten a lot of use out of these tables, so
okay.
this will bring us up where most of our buildings, our middles, our secondary schools have been addressed. Sarah Scott has not yet, but their furniture was reviewed and is still in pretty good shape.
Thank you.
Will we be auctioning or selling off any of the old furniture?
Pardon me? I didn't.
Will we be selling or auctioning off any of the old furniture?
That probably will be placed, if it's still usable, we will probably put it in auction, or if we need it at another facility, if it's better quality, we can move it somewhere else. But, yeah, that would probably appear in the auction unless it's broken and we don't feel it's good enough to put in the auction.
How many tables in total was this? Do we know?
I don't know, but I can find that out and let you know. But it's a lot, enough seating, I believe, at North and South to accommodate nearly 500 students at a time. And, I mean, there are a lot of tables. And it does go from the cafeteria area around the former pool area for seating, because they do use that for some instructional time and for meeting space. So it will be nice and uniform and will be attractive in that environment.
Are there any other questions or comments? Thank you. At this time, we have a motion and a second for the recommendation on the proposal for cafeteria tables. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed and abstain. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
Next, we have our school bus purchase recommendation. Dr. John Newport.
Good evening. Tonight I bring a recommendation to purchase 7 78-passenger school buses and 7 54-passenger special needs school buses with wheelchair lifts. The Vigo County School Corporation has a comprehensive bus fleet maintenance program that follows the Indiana Department of Education's recommendation to trade or rotate out 1/12 of its fleet annually. You may remember 2 years ago, we reduced our fleet from 196 buses to 176 buses, bringing that 1/12 to 14 buses purchased annually. Indiana has a statewide bidding system for purchasing school buses, which falls under the Central Indiana Education Service Center, or CIESC. Education service centers throughout Indiana typically serve school districts within their geographical region through a variety of programs and services. One of those services is cooperative purchasing. They utilize the buying power of multiple districts to help bring the competitive bids down. In the case of CIESC, they have offered to serve all school districts throughout the state and use the buying power of a statewide bid to ensure competitive pricing for everyone. CIESC hosts a public bidding window every 90 days and offers pricing from 3 school bus vendors. Specifications and pricing have been solicited for Bluebird, Thomas, and International school buses. I bring you the recommendation to purchase 7 78-passenger buses at a cost of $169,468 each, and from Curlin buses, those are the Thomas brand, and 7 54-passenger special needs buses from Midwest Transit International brand at a cost of $183,047 each. This brings our grand total to $2,467,605 for 14 school buses, each with a 10-year, 150,000-mile warranty. Conversations with other school district transportation departments have informed us that they have a good experience with Curlin Motors and Midwest Transit, meeting expectations with service and support on their bus fleet after the sale, as have we experienced good services with them as well. One added point to this recommendation, with your approval, we will be able to put a purchase order on to secure our spot in line for a 12 to 14-month lead time for manufacturing as we continue to chase federal rebates, grant funding, and partnerships with other organizations to offset the cost of electric buses. We have until our order starts manufacturing to adjust our order if needed. This means that if we are able to secure additional funding to offset the expense of electric buses, we can modify our order from diesel buses to electric buses without losing our place in line. We do currently have a heavy-duty electric bus grant with the Indiana Department of Environmental Management that was awarded in January. However, current federal restrictions are delaying the awarding process. We have resubmitted the appropriate paperwork and are awaiting word on if the grant will continue to be funded as awarded. We are asking for approval of Curlin Motors and Midwest Transit's recommendation letters found in your board packet and permission to execute the subsequent contracts to be developed based on that proposal pending final reviews by legal counsel. I'll take any questions you have.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the school bus purchase recommendations as presented by Dr. Newport tonight.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any questions or comments from the board?
So the warranties, that cover major things, transmission, motor, things like that?
Yes, the drivetrain covers the drivetrain, the transmission, the motor. It doesn't cover the items such as brakes, lights, those kinds of things. And so most of the work that our mechanics are doing are the brake replacements, the lights and those kinds of things, more the cosmetic things. But the heavy-duty into the engine work is covered by the warranty.
That's a 10-year warranty too, right, John? Does it
10-year.
go up, or is that locked in for 10 years?
Locked in for 10 years.
Good, okay.
With
Thank you.
this price, yes.
Thank you.
You said we have like a 12-month lead time to actually secure the vehicles.
Yes.
And you said that, I'm just making sure I got this right. We are hoping that everything falls in place for electric, for all of them, or for majority, or?
We would have the leeway to decide at that time. The way the grant is this year, we have until, as it was awarded, 2027, and we can replace 4 of them in line, we can replace all 7 in line, we can do all 14 in line. Our intent was to do the 78 passenger buses with the electric buses and leave the special needs buses to the diesel, because we're more comfortable with that fleet.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just ask a point of clarification, the main difference between an electric bus and a diesel bus for us at this point?
It's really just the motor and the transmission. As far as the brake drums, as far as the steering components, the lights, all of those are same for same for an electric bus versus a diesel bus. And that actually goes, also, you might have noticed, we have an international order and a Thomas order. And a lot of the equipment that we touch on both of those buses, such as the brakes and the lights are the same manufacturer, the stop arms are the same, those things that we change out regularly is all same for same. So we're stocking the same brand of other items such as the brakes and the lights. But when it gets in, and the engine is actually the same as well. The main differences are the chassis and the body configurations. In terms of the 78 passenger buses, our drivers have experienced both, and they do like the Thomas configuration of the cab and the visibility that they have when driving for safety, better at the 78 passenger. And then for the special needs, the features such as locking in the wheelchairs and those kinds of things is better. We like it better for the international brand. And so it's actually kind of nice to have both brands in our fleet and expanding our fleets in both markets, whereas previously we were just in one market.
Thank you.
Dr. Newport, do they still have a shop in our shop? Aren't they the ones that actually do work?
So now both vendors come and have a mechanic come on duty, and we provide a bay for them to utilize our space for when they're doing the engine work and then warranty work. And so both Curlin Motors and Midwest Transit have a mechanic that comes over, some of them 5 days a week, some of them multiple days, certain days of the week, just depending on what their work orders are within our district. They do like coming here and working in ours because we provide them with an inside bay where a lot of other districts are outside in the gravel lot. So they do appreciate that.
Can I ask how many of the 177 fleet have the wheelchair lifts and can accommodate special needs?
I would say estimate around 2025, but I'd have to get you a firm number tomorrow.
Are there any other questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, we do have a motion and a second for the school bus purchase recommendation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed or abstain? Thank you, Mr. Newport, or Dr. Newport. Moving on to our student handbooks, it looks like you were up again.
I am. The administration presents for your consideration the elementary and secondary student handbooks for the 25-26 school year. Each school's handbook is linked from either the elementary or secondary cover page and is followed by a table of contents for district-wide information and procedures. The district-wide information and procedures is a single document with one source with all of the nuts and bolts of the handbook, whilst each school's individual link contains information such as the school's contacts, phone numbers, addresses, etc. The intent is to provide ready and up-to-date reference to important procedures, information, contacts, and policies by providing handbook access directly from the VCSE webpage and each school's individual websites. Mrs. Teresa Stuckey, Director of Elementary Education, and Mr. John Beaker, Director of Secondary Education, worked with building principals, who in turn worked with their teams to review and provide recommendations for updates. These updates were discussed amongst the school principals and brought to district office for consideration and meaningful conversations. The administration is recommending approval of the 25-26 elementary and secondary handbooks as presented. The final drafts are linked in your board packet tonight. Mrs. Stuckey and myself are here to answer any questions that you may have.
I'll make a motion to approve the student handbooks as presented.
Second that.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
I would like to just get a little bit more information. One of the things that, first of all, thank you for all the work to get this done and to get it accessible virtually for our community. But I've had complaints in the past, the handbooks are inconsistent from one school to another, that sort of thing. So could you just speak to a little bit of like what's been done to kind of shore that up a bit?
Sure.
Yeah.
So the main parts of the handbook are, that's why we're having one district-wide handbook. And so that includes the policies and procedures for discipline, attendance, and things of that nature. And then that way that is consistent within every building. And then the parts of the schools is more of soft information of things about how they may do things locally within their building, but also just like the contacts so that if a staff member changes, they can update that accordingly and it be the most up-to-date.
So if a student moves from Fuquay to Farrington Grove, they know what the code of conduct is, they
That
know
is
what the
correct.
dress code is, it's not changed.
That is correct.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah, and south to north and all that stuff.
Yep,
Good deal.
correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to commend the linking them all in one document, so you're not hunting the websites, and you can tell when you click on the elementary ones, the personality of each school and, you know, what they value, so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation to approve the student handbooks this evening. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed or abstain? Thank you, Dr. Report.
Thank you.
Next, the third reading on the following policies, and before we get there, that is another one of our meetings that is open to the public. We met last week, and Ms. Deb Considine, is it Considine or Considine? Considine did attend again, and so thank you for being there.
Yes. And at that meeting, it occurred on Wednesday evening. We recommend for your approval this evening, approval for A285, no distracted driving policy. This one was not changed from the recommendation that CCHA made. D375, employee discipline. That one is also basically unchanged, although we did take one sentence and create its own paragraph, but otherwise the words are the same as recommended by CCHA. D425, employee benefits, is another one that was basically deemed untouched and the same as what CCH originally recommended. And then F150, use of credit cards. That one has been updated. We updated it with more internal controls, more restrictions on its use, so that we tightened it down even further from what CCHA had been recommending.
I'll make a motion to approve the third reading of the policies as presented.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
Has it been a minute since we've discussed, I mean, we have first reading at policy where we initially look over it. We have a second reading, or it comes to the board for everybody to see it, and that's when the links go live. And then third reading is when we finally adopt it and it becomes part of the actual policy book. So I just wanted to reiterate that process and why we have the committee and why we do it that way, so there's plenty of time to review, so.
And I'll also add that, like, for instance, with the use of credit card policy, like, we spoke heavily with the business office about what controls we do have, and we had a lot of conversation about that one, but I just appreciate that because not everything is immediately ready for third reading. Sometimes we have to go back and change language or understand what our internal policies are.
Yeah, I was going to point out, and to build on what both of you said, even though it says third reading, it's actually more like the fourth reading, and in some cases, the fifth or the sixth reading, as we work our way through it because of the questions we have and we work our way through those things. But it, at minimum, comes to 2 policy committee meetings and at minimum, 2 board meetings.
Correct. I will just add, I appreciate the work. Myself, Mrs. Lohr, and Mrs. LaBella all serve on that policy committee. At this time, do we take these all at once? Is that your recommendation?
Yeah, I would recommend that
That was
they
the
bring it once. If
I'm
someone
sorry.
wants to separate them out, they're welcome to.
We have a motion and a second to approve the third reading on the following policies as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed or abstain? Thank you. Moving on to second reading on the following policies.
For second reading, there's no action from the board on this. This is just to make the board, the other board members who are not part of the policy committee, aware of the fact that we're taking a look at these. So if you have comments that you want to share with members of the policy committee, you can. It also allows us to communicate with the public that these policies are up for second reading. For those of you who have not been coming to our meetings on a regular basis, since last summer, we've been working through every single policy in the book as we switch over from Neola over to Church, Hiddle, and Antrim, who's our new legal counsel and is providing with our new policies. So in essence, when we're finished, every policy in the book will have been touched, and every policy in the book will have been updated with Church, and Hiddle, and Antrim instead of the old Neola policies. And we're just working our way through it. So for second reading, we have A350, civility and decorum policy, B225, board meetings, D475, justifiable decrease in teaching positions, and E-175 student records. And since there are so many teachers here, I want to let you know that even though we are updating this policy, it's to convert it from Neola to CCHA. There is no plans or anything that's coming forth. That'll probably help make Aaron feel a little bit better that we clarify that we're not having that conversation. This is just a matter of updating from Neola over to CCHA.
And just a question, at this time, these will now become live on our website for the community to review and look over. So if there's any questions, you can reach out to any of us on the policy committee or attend that policy committee meeting.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to our facility study update from Gibraltar.
Before I invite Gibraltar up here to the table, I'm just going to do a quick reminder of where we've been, since we've got some people who haven't been attending. First of all, thank you all for attending tonight's board meeting. And for those of you who are watching on the live stream, or for those who choose to watch the video recording at a later date, I'm going to begin by reminding us what has been shared up to this point of the facility study. So for those of you who come each time, you're going to get bored through this part because you've already heard this part a few times. The current facility study began in late January of 2024 when the board contracted with Gibraltar Design to conduct the study. To keep the cost of this study at a minimum and not repeating work that had already been completed, Gibraltar began the process by using the results of previous facility study reports, including the community feedback that was documented inside or as a part of those previous studies. However, the scope of the current facility study was also designed to include an analysis of all of our VCSC facilities, not just the high schools. And it includes feedback from current employees about how the facilities in their current condition either enhance or diminish their ability to create the best possible learning environments for our students. Gibraltar provided updates to the board and our community at our public board meetings in 2024 on February 12th, March 18th, April 22nd, June 10th, September 30th, October 21st, and November 18th. In addition to what they're going to do tonight, Gibraltar also provided updates to the community and our school board in 2025 during our public board meeting on March 3rd and at public facility forums located at West Vigo High School on March 17th and at North High School and at South High School on March 25th. Information from each of these updates is posted on the VCSC webpage. You can go through with the school board and bring up where the meetings are, and there's a component down there that says documents, and they're all there in the documents folder. Since the start of winter, the focus of the facility study has been to merge the facts about the condition of our facilities, the feedback provided by our employees, the results of the previous facility studies, the facts of our current financial situation, the forecast of our future financial situation based on changes that continue to happen at the state level, and the statutory restrictions that are placed upon all school corporations, and the results of our most recent demographic report, which was presented in August of 2024. And that information on the demographic study is also available on the VCSC webpage. As such, on March 3rd, Gibraltar reported to us an estimated cost associated with modernizing and making up for several years of deferred maintenance of our current 23 K-12 schools. Tonight, they will provide an update on what might be feasible if the board chooses to reduce the number of schools as a way to increase staffing efficiencies and reduce the overall amount of money that would be needed to preventively maintain our schools after they become modernized. Please note that there is not going to be a plan presented today. Tonight's focus is on what is feasible by updating the board and community on the answers to some what-if questions. The information will be integrated with the information we already have received to date so that the board can move forward and work at developing a plan. So again, there is no plan that's going to be presented tonight. So if that's why you're here, just want to set the stage that this is just going to be answers to some what-if questions so that the board knows what's possible as they try to mesh all the information together. Before I introduce Gibraltar representatives so they can provide an update, I first want to remind us of the facts that have been gathered up to this point. Although we are still learning about the full ramifications of actions taken by the Indiana General Assembly at its most recent session. The information previously shared in March has been updated to reflect preliminary information that we are receiving from policy analysis, who are experts in translating the actions of the General Assembly into an understanding for us to know what the reality is going to be moving forward. So, some of you have been coming to these meetings, as I said, you've probably already seen these. A reminder, if you came, this is going to be kind of a tour through a summary of all these different facility studies. We have 6 schools that are less than 35 years old, and we have 11 schools that are more than 50 years old. In the summer and fall of 2023, we took some general obligation bond money, married it up with some ESSER money from the federal government to create an HVAC project for the high school of $24 million, and then a remaining $6 million to put an HVAC roofing and paving projects throughout the district. That $30 million that was approved that summer was actually the most amount of money we've invested in our schools since 2004. Last summer, the board approved an additional $11.5 million into general obligation bonds, which that work will begin this summer. We've been working throughout the summer with architects to get those things done, again, with HVAC, with paving projects, and with roofing projects. The schools with significant immediate needs, and this was shared back on March the 3rd. It's not just our high schools that have immediate needs. We have other schools with substantial and significant immediate needs. As you can see on there, Devaney, Wabash, Rio Grande, Sugar Grove, and Woodrow Wilson are also on those lists. Schools with moderate immediate needs, and for those of you who were here that night, and Gibraltar can probably explain that a little bit better than I can, significant immediate needs means they need to be dealt with immediately. The moderate needs, they really do need to be dealt with, but you have a little bit more time. But ignoring these buildings, they will soon be on the other list and have them as being immediate. And some of you who are in those buildings are going, yes, it is true. The one that is probably surprising to some is the Honey Creek, because people that I've run into have forgotten and don't realize it's 31 years old, 32 years old. And usually you start doing the preventive maintenance somewhere around years 15 through 20. And by the time they get to 30, they become more significant. And by the time they get to 40, they need to have full replacement in some such situations. And we have buildings that are well over 50 years old that have not had that done. The schools with the least amount of needs are Franklin, Fayette, and Riley, and the Booker T part of South High School. In terms of modernizing our schools, what was presented on March the 3rd is that if we wanted to keep all 23 schools, and we wanted to tear them down and reconstruct them from scratch and modernize them in that way, we would be talking about billions of dollars to be able to do that. The top number, the $1.2 billion to $1.35 billion, are actual construction costs. The numbers below that include the furnishings, architectural fees, bonding fees, interest, and those other things that you have to account for when you actually do bonds. If we wanted to keep all 23 of our schools and just renovate and modernize them through renovation, it's a much smaller number. If we wanted to do a combination between the two, partially new build and partially all renovation, it would land in between those numbers. So somewhere between the $600 million and the $1.2 billion, depending on how much we did as new versus how much we did as renovation. The more important number on this particular page is looking down at the after we modernize the schools, what will it keep to keep them preventively maintained, so that in the future, we're not sitting here with a different board, different superintendent, different administration, dealing with the exact same thing in the future, where we're struggling with this exact same issue of how do we update our schools, but instead, we preventatively maintain them along the way so we prevent repeating that. And basically, depending on the year and depending on the kinds of projects, it could be anywhere from 11 million up to over 30 million. The goal would be to stagger the work so that we could get a consistent $20 to $22 million per year that we would put into preventive maintenance. Of course, that would need to be adjusted each year based on inflationary rates, as what would cost $20 million today will cost more than that 10 years from now. We also have to marry all this information about our buildings with where are we with our enrollment. In 1972, we had over 20,000 students in the district. We are forecast that from about 2028, 29 and beyond to be around 12,500 students. And I pointed out with the arrow there, currently, we're about 150 to 200 students behind what they projected for now. So therefore, we would have to assume, although this will be a follow-up with Dr. McKibben, that since we're already 150 to 200 students behind, does that mean we're actually going to settle out closer to 12,000 instead of 12,500? And putting that in a per class perspective, when we look at 2029 and beyond, we come up with fewer than 800 kids in a class. That's significant from the standpoint that when we go back to when North and South were first opened, each of those classes at North and South were around 700 to 800 students in each of those classes, which is where we are projected to return, not just for one school, but for the entire county in 2029 and beyond. We're going to go quicker through this part, but just a quick reminder, in 2008, the state took the people aspect, the teachers, counselors, custodians, nurses, secretaries, educational assistants, administrators, and so forth, and took them out of the property taxes, and the state took that over. That left the property tax portion of our school property tax to deal with the debt service, which is your building renovations and new construction, or big preventive maintenance issues. Facility maintenance, transportation, equipment, and technology stayed on the property tax fund. So in 2008, there was a big drop in our rate. That big drop was because the state took over what used to be the general fund. It's now the education fund. So when the state took over the responsibility for that, they also provided a way that we could supplement with property taxes to supplement what the state gave us, and that's an operational referendum. And that gets confusing because they also created an operations fund. The operations fund and the operational referendum are two different things. If we take a look at what the state did and we take today's number of students, and we were to go back to 2010 and take the number of students that we have today, you can see that we start at the same point there on the part of the graph. The blue line represents where we would be in today's funding if the state kept up with inflation. The orange lines represents where we actually are. The difference between those two lines in 2020, $4 is almost $10 million. Our operational referendum is about $8 million, just to put some context to that. Of the sum of the money that is in the that we use for the operational fund, part of it is for transportation and fuel. That would typically be a property tax thing. So it's actually more like $7 million that we have on the operational fund that helps make up this $10 million from the state. Because the curricular materials was counted in the funding formula this time and portrayed to be new funding, which wasn't new funding because we've received it each of the last 2 years, that $158 per student that we get for curricular materials is actually not new funding. When you take that in consideration, we're probably going to be at less than 1%, which means that it is highly likely that this gap is going to grow as we compare with keeping up with inflation. Just as a reminder, we do use the operational referendum, which is a rate of 0.1622 and generates about $8 million. That is used to support classroom teaching. It also provided us with some school counselors and behavior interventionists to help with mental health supports. It also helped with physical health supports by increasing the number of school nurses. It covers the entire school protection officer program. And then, as I just said, we use about $1 million of it to pay for fuel to help offset the circuit breaker losses that we have on the property tax side for transportation. I'm sorry, I'm off on my, here we go. On the property taxes, just to remind you, it's the debt service, and it's what used to be in the capital projects, the transportation, the bus replacement. They combined the capital projects, the transportation and bus replacement, and renamed it Operations Fund. I don't know why they called it the Operations Fund, since it gets confusing with the term operational referendum, but that's what they chose to do. More importantly on this slide is the update. In 2025, the Indiana General Assembly passed Senate Enrolled Act 1. We are still trying to figure out what the overall impact is going to be with Senate Enrolled Act 1, and I see some other people in the audience who work with property taxes nodding in agreement. We still don't know exactly what this is going to mean, but when we talk to Baker Tilly, that's our financial advisors, we listen to seminars put on by Stiefel, which is financials, and policy analytics, which basically gets in the weeds and studies this on a parcel-by-parcel basis. They all say that we should expect much less revenue in the future moving forward. And by 2030, it could be as much as $3 or $4 million less than we currently receive. In terms of that funding history, the way it works is when assessed value goes up in our county, our rate is adjusted. We have a flat levy. So we prove how much money we needed to do through some formulas that the state provides. That formula said that we needed $26.8 million in order to deal with our building maintenance, repair, replacement, transporting students, replacing obsolete buses, and replacing equipment and technology. And then through the circuit breaker process, or property tax caps, we lose $8 million of that, which means we only get about 18.8 of the 26.8 million that we had permission to do. Again, we don't know what Senate Enrolled Act 1 is enacted, Senate Enrolled Act 1 is going to do to us moving forward. We know it's going to change it. We don't know what that change is going to be until it's fully implemented. So when we take a look at this and we break it down further, in the operations fund, to do that $20 to $22 million a year that we need in preventive maintenance, we actually only have $9 million available. If we didn't have the property tax caps, that would be an additional 8, that would put us at 17 million. That would still be short of where we are or would need to be with our preventive maintenance. If you don't have enough to do preventive maintenance and you do that year after year after year, you find out, get to the condition of the buildings that they're in now. This is not an individual's issue. This is an overall issue that's all the different factors coming together that's got our buildings in these conditions. We have been supplementing the property tax cap losses with general obligation bonds to try to make up for that deferred maintenance that has happened over many years. That's why we did the $12 million 2 years ago. We did the $11.5 million last year. We're doing a study now to find out what we may be able to do for this summer, fall, for next summer's projects, so that we can try to continue to address that. Again, Senate Enrolled Act 1 has made it so we cannot use general obligation bonds every year from this point forward. So that is going to further complicate our ability to keep up with that. If you really want to get into the details, this is a page on the left column is the accumulated property tax cap or circuit breaker losses we've had in each year. The one on the right is what we've done with general obligation bonds to try to make this up. Just as a point of aside, property tax caps, actually, circuit breaker losses actually started in 2009. You'll notice we only did 2016, or the last decade. Part of the reason is because from 2009 to 2015, we have to do a public records request from the state to get our own information. So currently, where are we? We currently have 15 elementary schools, 5 middle schools, and 3 high schools. What we've learned is that if you go strictly by a spreadsheet, and we can't go strictly by a spreadsheet, there's many other factors that are going to go into play. And we go with the fact that if we go to the 600 to 650 students in an elementary school, which they do across the state, we do 800 to 1,200 students in a middle school like they do across the state, that's where we could come down to. What the board asked is, what are our parameters? If we can keep all 23 schools, we know that that's one option. This is the other side of that equation. What Gibraltar is going to do today is we asked a series of what-if questions to help us better understand what this means so that we can marry it with all the other information to figure out, do we do one of the two extremes, or do we land somewhere in between those two things? And in order to do that, we needed to have some what-if information. So what we've asked Gibraltar to come here this evening to do, and they're going to do for us, what if a new high school was constructed? What if the current high schools were renovated? What might that look like? What does that do for us? What if we were to take some buildings and repurpose them for other purposes? For example, is it possible for high schools or an elementary school to be repurposed into a middle school? Is it possible for a current middle school to serve as an elementary school? Is it possible that we could add on classrooms at one school and increase the staffing efficiencies and replace a smaller school that has those staffing inefficiencies so that we can better live within these funding realities that we have? We've been the state since 2008. It's been 17 years that the state has taken over funding of the teachers and the people aspect of this. And we're $10 million behind. And after 17 years, I think we need to come to terms with the fact that they're probably not going to fully fund it. So therefore, the question as a community is, do we make changes so that we can live within those means better? Or do we go back to our community and say, the operational referendum we have now is not enough, and we need to increase that? Those are the kind of questions that we have to marry and try to figure out what to do. So at this time, if we can have Gibraltar come up to the table and give us a little update on some of these what-if questions that they provided for us.
Welcome.
And we're told we have several people watching online, so project out on that microphone so that they can hear us at home.
Sixth grade Sunday school class.
Yes.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you, members of the school board and Dr. Hensel, for that background information and introduction to what we might define as step 3 in a process, which is feasibility study exploration. What options might be afforded to do the kinds of things that Dr. Hensel described. What are the considerations when you look at these types of options, such as building a new high school or converting an elementary to a middle school? So just for everyone here and for this presentation, those listening, it's just a continuation of exploration. These are just ideas. Things inevitably change as more ideas and input is exchanged. I think eventually the right solutions start to present themselves when you go through this step in the study, and there'll be other steps after this. So let's get started. I did want to bring this forward. Dr. Hensel mentioned all the previous presentations. So many moons ago, one of our earlier presentations, we used this illustration. So everything that a school board endeavors, you have been excellent stewards, and there are many examples Dr. Hensel mentioned about being mindful of what this represents, which is every square foot that the district has under roof. First of all, how you're optimizing it for its functional purposes of learning, how do you look at efficiencies, but any new endeavor, any study of options has to be very mindful of what we would call best practices, which are these things that you see highlighted in red. I'm not going to read those to you, but I think you can appreciate, and as we look through it ourselves, we're measuring against these things. So that's very important. If you're a teacher, you probably think, oh, that could be a rubric. How does this solution meet this need? What would the score be? What about this, and what would the score be? Next, I'm not going to repeat all this for you, but Dr. Hensel outlined the kinds of options we looked at. So that's what this presentation entails. Let's start with high schools. High schools, high school learning. First of all, if you were to consider a new high school, we need to establish a student capacity. So we chose 3,000 students as a representative example. Yes, that's a fairly large high school by many people's perspective, but I would share with you there are also lots of high schools we know in the state of Indiana that are much larger than this. You probably need about 120 acres if you were able to pick any site you would want. So 100 to 120 acres. It's not indicative of what's in Vigo County. It's just to give you an idea as a board. New high schools, roughly 100 acres to 120 acres is a nice land size. These are other things that you would want to keep in mind when you're planning. Certainly a nice roadway access, You'd want to consider the venues, co-curricular, extracurricular, like band and band competitions, your athletics and your athletic venues, if you're going to host events. And then lastly, at the very bottom, probably one thing that's very important is any endeavor such as this, it's not lost upon Gibraltar, and we would help you with a master plan. So it doesn't mean what's done initially is the vision for the school for the next 30, 40, or 50 years. We would be futurists with you and say, well, what are some other aspects? So that's kind of the what if we started to explore a new high school. On a different level, if we start thinking about the building itself for 3,000 students, I think there is definitely some square foot efficiencies because you're getting to create the school to your exacting specifications. You're going to want to maximize the use of the dollar to have every opportunity afforded the students. So that's one thing that can happen. The floor plan shape of the building and where things are located, well, we have ideas and best practices. This just kind of gives you an idea of, at a very executive school board level, you know, there's a zone for academics in the classrooms and those types of things, the sciences. You're going to have a more social zone with some explorations where cafeterias, auditoriums, performing arts, and those types of things happen for the whole school. And then you more than likely would have an athletic zone in the high school. These are areas of the buildings that might be open at night or for events and those types of things. So this just gives you an idea of how that might look and what you might want to consider with the same master planning ideas. And then you can get into more details such as, do you want to consider a freshman center? How do you feel about other things that the school district is trying to deliver to students? And we could put those components into a discussion such as this for a new high school. Okay, what if we transition and say to ourselves, can, for example, West Vigo High School, what if that became a new and modernized high school? Same opportunities as a new high school would present. How would that start to look? First of all, a feasibility study, remember, is can it be done? How would it be done? Is it feasible? What would be the outcome? I think summarily we could say West Vigo's current condition could be modernized and updated and very well and absolutely could provide the same educational opportunities as a new high school would. So this gives you an idea. This is a drawing that illustrates both site and building together. So on this illustration, you can see in green areas is like a Google image of the campus. A lot of the pieces on the campus are in place. They are reasonably good conditions, such as football fields and baseball fields. To the board's desire and extent, you could talk about updating those. But more importantly is the building itself, where majority of the learning happens. In blue, you see areas of the existing building that would be modernized and updated, which can include the Viking gym. It can include some of the other classrooms and cafeteria spaces. In orange, you see represented new construction. So areas of the building that need additional space, additional components to make the new high school opportunity go. And I say new in quotes, is that when we're done, this would be a new West Vigo High School. To the left in your image, you can see a gray area where what used to be the existing middle school. In this illustration, we explored the study of what if the middle school were the orange on the top left, but we're going to show you a different option to think about moving the middle school aspect to an elementary school converted to a middle school, because you might want to consider freeing up some additional space on this campus and moving those middle learners who have, I think admittedly, some different learning issues at that stage in their lives versus a traditional high school student. So you may want to look at moving middle learners off of there. And then there's probably some things you'd want to do to the site when you consider this. I won't read to you all these bullet points, but again, everything's done with an eye on the master plan and the other best practices that go into creating a new high school. This is just a brief example of the before and afters. So if people are wondering how on earth could you take, for example, in the top right, something old, an old corridor with old terrazzo, and then in the top right, you can see the after picture, create a new and vibrant new space. Old science, picture before, and new science. So it can be done, it is done numerous times, and we've shown you that. Okay, when you add on to a building with new space that's needed, a clever attribute is to create using the guidelines and best practices of planning, the outcome can be a new look on the outside. So you can see the picture on the right is the old look before with the white fascia and the brick. Well, now this image on the left shows you can change the look. You could obviously then start changing colors if you wish, the way the expression of windows is happening. Most importantly, inside the building is all new space for learning, but outside the building, you can have a new look. The bottom picture shows you, could you even build a two-story part of the building? Yes, you can. The bottom right illustration shows you that. So that's new West Vigo High School if you wanted to convert and modernize it. So what if we wanted to look at middle schools and outcomes of change in the district for middle schools? Here is Terre Haute North, Vigo High School, West, and South High School. So what if we want to change those into middle schools? First of all, let's arrive at a capacity student population. Let's say, for the sake of this study, as we did, 900 to 1,000 students, plus or minus. And what we think you would explore that you would like is we could, as one option, renovate and completely transform the academic area of the building. So that's the area in blue you see there. So we would have arranged in like grade level groupings, so a 6th grade, a 7th grade, and an 8th grade grouping or house area. We design into that renovated area how we want students to move from the blue area to what would be still a cafeteria, auditorium, gyms, exploration spaces. And by renovating, you design it the way you want to, exacting details, but you live under the existing roof and change everything inside that, walls and roof stay. And then on this illustration, you can see there is classroom space you wouldn't necessarily need or want. So that's shown on the right of this illustration as demo or demolition. You can make a determination of what happens at the top of this illustration with CTE. And the red lines start to show the barriers between a completely isolated middle school, again, would have a new feel for roughly 900 to 1,000 students. We'd address the pool, the old pool, and we would infill that with the highest and best purposes needed for the middle schools at this size. And again, when you're building like a minor new addition or you're tearing down part of the building, you would need to rebuild exterior walls where you tore down part of the building. So when you rebuild the wall, you're simply rebuilding it with the image and look that is new. So for the community and people driving by, if they never had a middle learner inside the building, they would say, wow, that looks like a new middle school. And it essentially would look like a new middle school for them, even though it's a renovated Terre Haute North or Terre Haute South. You could also, at this building site, we took a look at the option of what's in yellow or orange there for you. And that is, you could take the concept of those 6th, 7th, and 8th grade houses, and you could tear down all of the academic area there on the right, tear it all down, rebuild all new with this more triumvirate configuration of more distinct 6th, 7th, and 8th grade houses. Building it new like this would be considerably more expensive, considerably more expensive. I felt like you would want to see that that option was looked at, what would happen if we tore down and built more new. Okay. What if we looked at Sugar Creek Consolidated, that's an elementary school, and said that is the closest school building to West Vigo High School or West Vigo Middle Senior High School now. And what if we converted that to a middle school? Could that be done? What might that look like? How does that look? So what we wanted to show you here was the response to that idea. Again, in blue is space that gets slightly reconfigured. Might be as simple as changing chalkboard heights, might be tearing down a wall, it might be adding a couple more sinks for the family consumer science or whatever that program is. Really simple in this type of school because it was a fairly new school to start with. Well, that's not fair. It's a 20-year-old school. The district has taken really good care of it, so the transition could be made more simple. That's the correct way to say it. Orange represents what you would need to add to the building. So, and it's logical. You would probably want a 2-court basketball gym, so we would add another gym. That's at the bottom of the illustration, and that would fit right where it's shown. You would want to add some additional classrooms for other middle learner purposes. You might even want to consider a grade level, like 5th grade. The green represents essentially Sugar Creek and the incline, the hills that lead down to the creek, so we just stay away from that area. And you can see how the building can fit. The white areas, we'd probably leave pretty much alone. We just preventatively maintain them, so update them. So the cafeteria and kitchen existing, we just make sure it's in good, like new working order when we're done with the project. The white indicates adjustments to something as simple as like bus parking, bus loading, unloading, when you make this configuration change. Visually, the top drawing, top illustration, you can see there in the back that flat roofed area illustrates, that's kind of how the gym fits back there. The green, again, it indicates Sugar Creek. In the front, you can see the illustration of the 2-story addition. That also is really nice for middle learners. In some cases, like you would put logically, like the higher grade level, 7th, 8th grade, maybe on the 2nd floor, lower grade level on the 1st floor. And that also is some middle learner principles like that configuration. And then this illustration shows what that would look like. Again, clever ideas, you add on new space, you make it look the way you want it to look for the future. For just the exercise of showing you what would happen if we imitated what was already there, you can see this essentially imitates the existing building, which, given the age and character of the building, we thought, well, what might that look like? And it could look something like this if we pursued that option.
So as you can see, everything kind of impacts everything. So you see this chain of thought leadership and the what ifs, the next scenarios, if you were to create that optimum capacity for middle schools, then what do you do with your existing middle schools? And what we did was we looked at elementary programming to take your existing middle schools to just what if these were converted? You know, what are the assets of the building that already work for an elementary school? What would need to be converted? And then help kind of quantify what would that capacity be? So what would the student capacity be in each of your middle schools? So this is just a representative example of Otter Creek. Obviously some recent investments in Otter Creek, which would make minimal work that would have to happen to have it convert. But we wanted to provide that as an option for consideration too, to see what would you do with your existing middle schools. We took that further. We've said this a few times tonight, but there is an optimal capacity for elementary to reach that efficiency. And that efficiency is from staffing standpoint, transportation, from, if you think of special ed programming at the schools as well, and plus from programming that would be offered for every student at those schools. So that number, that range would be 550 to 750 is what we're seeing across the state of Indiana as a norm. You know, as being a former elementary principal for 15 years, having 3 elementary or 3 kindergarten classrooms versus having 5 or 6, there's some efficiencies that you can get from a teaming aspect of it, but also with the enrollment that can go up or down, you have more classrooms to be able to absorb that increased enrollment at those schools. So this programming benchmark was created as feedback was pulled in from the staff input about what do we need elementary learning to do today. And I'm not going to read through the list, but what we're looking at is let's establish the program and then let's see what it would look like at each of the schools. Now, we could not do that without also looking at cafeterias, kitchen sizes, serving capacity, the gyms, the media centers, all those different components, common areas of a school to make sure if we applied this program, what would it look like? What would need to have to happen to increase that enrollment? And we also looked at like a district special ed programming. And so we looked at 3 different programming of, you know, what happens across the state of Indiana. But looking at, for this exercise, we looked at creating some increased special ed programming at each of the elementary schools. Part of this exercise too is we wanted to look, you know, we started with Lost Creek and did a side-by-side comparison with a newer school to determine those new programs. What does Lost Creek have, for example? And we did this with each of the schools, and what would need to happen to get it to that optimal capacity that we've talked about. Here's just one example of what this would look like, just a Ben Franklin Elementary School. Looking at that safe and secure entrance, a makerspace. If you remember during our staff input, we heard that it went from something that we wanted to something we now need at the elementary level to help with that exploration, and plus that continuation of the very robust CTE program that you've built in your district, and then expanding programming, as you can see, for serving special needs, and then increased capacity with where would you need to add on to that building to get to that optimal number, for this exercise getting to about 650, 680 for Ben Franklin. Now, please know that it's the same puzzle pieces, but the puzzle looks different at each elementary school because you can think they're all very unique in the way that what the site will allow if you were to increase. Obviously, you don't want to impact student outdoor play areas. We have to consider arrival and dismissal disruptions that it would cause with that increased traffic, and then also just overall parking at these elementary schools. So looking at each of the elementary schools and applying the same program was part of that what-if exercise, so that you know from your existing inventory across the district, what would these buildings be able to do? And I just provided this as an example to kind of create some visuals to understanding of what are we talking about with a safe and secure entrance at the elementary level, what does that look like? And then also shifting from, media centers to being a hub of learning and serving multiple purposes, and then also maker spaces at the elementary level and what those could accomplish for learning. So clearly, there's a lot of information that's been presented this evening. There's a lot for the board to digest. And as Dr. Himsel mentioned earlier, there's multiple steps to this feasibility stage. And I want you to know that Gibraltar is here to proceed as directed if there's other areas that you would like us to explore further.
Thank you.
Questions for them?
Questions? Do we have questions for, yes, our questions for Gibraltar? While we have them here.
I mean, I feel like he answered my two main ones, which was, would there be 4 sped classrooms in each school, which you answered, and then I had questions about the outdoor space, which you also answered, so thank you.
So one of the main components of the elementary is to make them as even as possible throughout our district, to have all the same amenities as we're moving forward.
Yeah, the ultimate goal would be no matter your address, you have the same opportunities and experiences afforded to you. And, as we said, the solution looks a little bit different at each of the schools, but at the end, you would look at applying that same program.
So are the schools as bad as you thought when you started? Some of them are, right? Beyond, I'm just.
Yes,
Okay.
there's a lot of work that needs to be done. I would first say what comes to mind is accommodations to your teachers and staff.
Yeah.
I think I wouldn't suggest this, but you could probably put them out in tents and they would find a way to get the job done. That's what your educational team sees. They tend to not look at the old classroom and think, how do I engage these kids? How do we do learning every day? And it is fair to say, though, from what we observed, at some of the buildings, these are just everyday splinters. I've heard educators say they're like splinters under the fingernails when your room environment is too hot or it's too cold, or you don't have the technology, or the power trips and you gotta change the power, or the windows leak, or it's noisy because the HVAC is not working. So those are just barriers sometimes, but your teachers and staff remove those barriers in any way they can and keep their eye on the target. But, with the right discussion and further development, we are starting to see where solutions are going to present themselves.
One thing I want to be sure, I appreciate everyone being here tonight. I do. I've got other comments too, but I want to make a comment right now if I can. This is a community decision. You look at us up here as a board, we're here, you elected us to do that. What we're trying to do is, got meat on the bone now. We've been studying and A group of us went north and looked at schools up there, new, renovated. I got excited when I saw that stuff. But it's gonna take a community. This community either is gonna put the thumbs up or put the thumb down. And I just hope we go with the best for everybody. And I've got other comments. I'll wait till the end. Thanks.
I just,
For me, the core is to ensure that every child has an equal opportunity in academics, athletics, and the arts. I think coming on the board, I did not realize the limitations that we had at the various buildings from high school to elementary that keeps that from happening. And I just feel like it's not fair to a lot of the kids we have because it's where their school is what they get. On the flip side of that, I want to say with graduation, that's a lot of outstanding kids that have come through this, and I think we can still do better.
My question was, let's say we have the money and new high school is the way to go. What's the timeline of a new high school build right now in Indiana?
Years, not months.
2 years, 3 years?
Yeah,
what?
3 years.
I would say budget 3 years,
Okay.
and some might even say that's aggressive.
Is there still the supply chain issues? Are we still dealing with that?
Only in limited areas. It fortunately has mostly lessened. But
And looking at the current buildings, what the upgrades we have done, how much of that can be transferred to the new buildings?
yeah, you had an eye on what could be transferred.
Like
So-
the chillers and things like
Yeah,
that.
so that would-
I want the community to understand that too. That money we got, federal dollars, we had to get it for a certain purpose, but we can reuse that in new or renovated buildings, correct, guys?
Yeah, that would be
Absolutely.
step one in the, as we move forward, say, okay, we're gonna do this. Let's look at what you have that you'd designed to carry forward.
So fortunately, the vast majority of those funds that we spent were spent looking in the future that we can reuse that equipment and not lose that, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
I have an aesthetic question. Really, I was a part of the delegation from the board that got to go up to Hobart and Valpo and see what you guys have worked on before, and it was a good day. A lot of steps. But one of the things that we hear so often is just the curb appeal, particularly of North and South. And the internal issues aside, when you talk about the what if of keeping those and making those into a renovated middle school situation where we can better serve the students in that way. And the pictures I saw looked good. I would love to hear from your perspective what that does for economic development in our community, because, you can have a chicken and an egg conversation about what feeds that. But I'm here for the schools to feed it. So could you talk to us a little bit about how you've seen that play out for those other communities where you've been active and what that has done to lift the community up
Oh,
there?
Absolutely. I don't have, off the top of my head, quantification of dollars, but that can be found. But the observations I could summarize as follows. First of all, for your students, I am told without question, it attracts top-tier teachers. It's just natural, right? They go to 3 places and you have the best environments and the nicest, cleanest, awesome spaces for learning. First of all, they can envision their job in that regard is going to be easier to teach students, and they can focus on having all the tools in their toolbox in the learning space, and then they can pursue the mission of advancing your students' learning. So that's number one. And to this day, buildings that are even 15 years old, they still call it their new high school or their new middle school or their new elementary, whether it's a renovation or build new. So we walk through the building, oh, you're the person who did our new high school. We love this new high school. And I'm thinking, well, it's 10 years old. But they think of it as new, because it is new still. A school can be done today that's modern for the next 30 years. And we do that. So that's another item. So the enthusiasm, culture building. People driving around the community. Realtors tell us they drive around. They don't have the time to get out and go into every single school. So you mentioned curb appeal. Took me a little while when I first got into the industry to think, why do human beings need to make a judgment of a school, in particular, a school, based on a drive-by? Be different if it might be a office building or a corporate headquarters. You drive by and say, I like that corporate, this is a school, but they do. That's the fact of the matter. Realtors say, when we drive by this new high school you did for this community, or this new renovation in this community, it sells. And when you're competing with other communities, like people tell us you are, it attracts people into your community to see something new and fresh, and realtors will tell you that. And they're usually the first ones, usually on the front line of that. So that, in my mind, is economic development. The last thing would be, one last point, you're a business, you're trying to bring in 200 jobs. You need happy employees. I would submit most of those employees have kids. Happy kids, happy home life, happy, good, productive employees. So when your district has maybe removed some additional obstacles, as I appreciated you saying, think about your employers coming in and saying, I could have 500 jobs here, and look at this school district, and smart business owners could say, that's going to mean productive employees, because they're going to come to work each day knowing my kids are in great care at these schools. Look how new and vibrant they've been renovated. The district's investing in it. Everybody's on board. They're going to bring jobs here. They did before. They will again. My belief. Is that
One thing I
helpful?
like to
Three
add,
items?
I got a story here. I wanted this community to hear loud and clear. You know, I work at Duke Energy. We try to develop economic development opportunities for our communities. 3 months ago, we had a prospect in town, 250 great jobs could be coming. And we take them around, show them things, but at the end of the day, they said, let's see one of your high schools. But we want to see one of the big ones. So I was already warned, that kind of in my mind, they've done some work already on their education system here. So I caught in my mind, which one, north or south? So we visited one of the high schools, and this was the decision makers we had. We were between another community in southern Indiana or here. They were down 2 of us. We walked through the high school, 15 minutes all it took. Went to like the laboratory science areas and places like that. But what they did see, I want to pause there, they saw a great staff and great students. They told me that, they said, we saw that. Your buildings suck. You should be embarrassed. And I appreciate them being open and honest, but we lost, and that gets back, Amy, to what you said. Those opportunities happen, y'all don't know that, but they do. They come to town and they look at, but they wanted to go in the gut of the animal and look at it, and they did it. And they ended up going to the other community, and they were great jobs. They were $80,000 to $140,000 jobs, and we missed it.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that cuts to the absolute core of what we're doing and what we've started doing with the county government and the Chamber of Commerce who are here tonight. We're so grateful for you being here. But the things that we did with Senator Good and Representative Heaton and Representative Paff during session to try and bring a really collaborative approach to this, because what we're talking about here tonight impacts all of us, and it impacts, we just had a great day yesterday. All those kids, we want them to have jobs here so that our grandchildren will be here. You know, we watched our babies walk across that stage, you know? So, yeah, I mean, it absolutely is, and thank you for sharing that.
Appreciate the work you've done. It helps. I mean, you know, I've had experience on, you know, other boards, school boards, but this is really, we got a challenge. But
Right.
I think this community's up to it. I do, but I appreciate what you're giving us to look at. We have to.
I have a question, just, you know, Amy and I were on the board when the last referendum came up and it failed. And our community spoke, and we knew we had to get to work for something different and something more so that speaks to our community, to be collaborative, to be more inclusive with our community. And I know one of the things in talking with you moving forward is how do we bring our community with us? We know that our community is very prideful of their buildings, of their schools in which they work or their children or family members attend. And we want to be very mindful of that, but there is work we need to do as presented to us. We can't change the numbers. Facts are facts, whether how we feel about it or not. And I want to know, I know you've worked in other communities with multiple buildings. We saw the list of the 11 buildings more than 50 years old, 6 less than 35. We need to touch all of our buildings. How do we do that and bring our community on board that maybe West High School or North or South are touched first, or middle school or elementary is touched first, but how do we bring our community that sees the work in their building, how do we bring them on board too? Be like, yes, I can support this because I know my building is in line too. Do you have any examples of that with your work?
I'm glad you shared that, because it is that long-range plan, because as we mentioned earlier, if you did all of it at once, you're gonna be in the same situation 20 years from now. Oh, sorry. If you did all of the schools, everything that, you know, we have talked about or will talk about at one time, one, it's hard on the, you know, the construction industry. You're not going to be as competitive on bidding. But the second piece is you're going to put yourself in the same situation in 20 years from now of having to address all your buildings at once. So that long-range plan, if you can see, everything that we talked about today is kind of like a continuation or a chain reaction. And when you do that, it creates that long opportunity. But when you know the full range of what's going to happen, you have the patience to know when it happens to mine, it will look like this.
So keep doing what you're already doing. We can say, because we go to all these different communities, Dr. Himsel, your superintendent, and the leadership and the school board are doing an exemplary job communicating to this community. Now, some may not feel that way, but we can say by comparison, you're a letter grade A. So keep doing that, and it will continue to build. Some things just need to have percolation, more discussion. The right answers will start to reveal themselves, because nothing's been decided. You're still exploring. Your superintendent has a vision of what could be considered. You guys, we've done some of these what-ifs. There'll be more what-ifs. But then, I would just encourage you to keep doing the letter grade A that you're doing, which is you make things available. The community can see it, watch it, look at it later, and you're being very transparent.
And remind us, this is the most we've had at any of these meetings that you've presented at.
So just keep doing more of the same, and then it'll continue to build.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just have to add, I think that a hot classroom is more than a splinter in a teacher's finger, because when you come down after a day of teaching and you're wrung out from that anyway, but you're also just dehydrated, it's not fair. So I just had to say that.
Any other questions? Katie, if you could put up that last line.
Well, you can only give me 3 minutes.
There we go.
You get 60
So,
seconds, Rick.
just as I reminded you at facility forums and so forth, what's next? The board's got to take in consideration all the information we have about the condition of our buildings. And some of them are in better shape than others. Most of them are just in bad shape and have very significant needs. We have to consider the facility assets we already have and what could feasibly be done with them to try to put us in the best possible position, not only for today, but into the future. We have to consider the enrollment history and where we're going with the forecast. We can't ignore the fact that we've went from 20,000 students projected to get down to 12,500, possibly down to 12,000. We can't ignore the fact that at one time, we were around 1,500 students in a grade level, and we were projected to go down below 800, almost into the 700, 750 range in a grade level. The learning needs of our community's children and the district's geography. We're currently busing kids all over the district for high ability classes, for different special education opportunities. and so forth, because the schools in some cases aren't big enough to handle that within their current conditions and have enough students qualify for those programs without having to bus them to a different school and community. That's what creates those inequities, when you don't have that space to do so. I think that's the reason why many of the elementary schools across the state are in that 550 to 750 range, so that they do have enough students to qualify for those different programs. The feedback that we've had from our employees, our students, the community members, and the more that we're going to get, we do plan on having some additional opportunities for additional feedback. And then just the reality. We only have so much money that we can use. And our option is an operational referendum to pay for the teachers. And we've done that once. And we know the condition of our current community, and can they actually handle even more of that or not? We have to take in consideration all the previous state laws and all the new ones that we just had, and how Senate Enrolled Act 1 is not only going to affect us today, but how's it going to affect us in 2030 or in 2032? We can't just continue to kick the can down the road and continue to put Band-Aids on the situation. At some point, we have to see what is the reality that we're living in and figure out how we address it for the long term. And then we have to think about the other things that the State House have been talking about, and even though it didn't pass this session, we know it's likely it could pass next session or the session after that, because you can see the momentum and the different conversations that are having. And then we have to be real about the fact that the 2019 operational referendum is coming to a close. And what are we going to do about that? What are we going to do? Are we going to have an $8 million hole in the budget that we have to fill? Are we going to need to put ourselves in a position where we have to increase it? Or are we going to put ourselves in a position where we can renew it, but maybe we can decrease it a little bit? Those are all considerations that we have to do. For those of you who are here tonight, for those of you who are watching live or on the video, this is a monumental task to put all of this together. It's not just one thing. When I mentioned about the geography, I talked about the programs and getting people bused, but we also have to think about a river, we have to think about an interstate, we have to think about railroads. All those things factor into where we're at. We have to think about sidewalks and where we have walking zones and where we don't have walking zones, and where do we have to bus and where we don't have to bus. So, again, thank you to Gibraltar. This has been 16 months that they've been helping us gather facts about our facility. If you've been following along and you're knowledgeable about our demographic study we did in August of 2024, the condition of our schools, the statutory restrictions with which we must comply, the funding mechanisms that are available to us, the funding amounts within which we must live, and the actions taken by the General Assembly that affect the process we must follow to address all these modernization and deferred maintenance needs, then tonight probably didn't surprise you. For those of you who have not been following along and are unaware of these facts, please get involved. We encourage you to go to our website. We have all of the different presentations that have been done throughout available on there, the demographic studies available on there. If you prefer watching and hearing the information that was presented, please go to our YouTube channel, and you can get archived videos and watch the presentations that were done previously, listen to the questions that were asked during that time. And we also encourage you to attend an upcoming facility forum that we will have, that we're working on getting scheduled, where summaries of this information that we shared tonight will be shared again, and the opportunity to provide additional feedback will be provided. As I stated when summarizing that last PowerPoint slide, the amount of information, the factors that we need to consider are vast. I do not believe that a perfect solution exists. The reason I don't think there is a perfect solution is because I think this community, if there was a perfect solution, would have already have addressed this. I believe this is because of the following 2 points. First, I think our community understands that our kids deserve access to opportunities to help them compete with anyone from anywhere. Our teachers, our administrators, and our staff are doing really good things. We saw that on full display over this past weekend with all the ceremonies that we went to and listening to the kids' stories. The great thing about this time of year is listening directly to our students, like things like the award ceremonies, the commencement exercises, the building trades open house, and the end of the year luncheon, and even the Ivy Tech commencement ceremony where several of our kids qualified to be there and graduate because of the work they did while they were in high school. And then the many other events that allow us to interact directly with a wide array of VCSC students during this month of May with all these different activities. A common theme from these recent conversations is that our teachers are doing a great job preparing them for life after high school, but our facilities are in dire need of modernization. The second thing is I believe that many throughout our community have reached the conclusion and agreed that something needs to be done. They recognize that our facilities need to be modernized in a manner that provides our students with the same advantages that many have witnessed when they go and visit other schools. Unfortunately, we just haven't been able to get agreement on a plan. The issue of modernizing our facilities is not new. It has been ongoing for many years, long before I began serving this community. The graduates that we celebrated recently, especially those who we experienced yesterday's commencement exercises, began their kindergarten experience in 2012. 13 years later, and we knew in 2012 that our high schools needed to be addressed. 13 years later, they still have not been fully addressed. Since 2012, the needs at the other buildings continue to accumulate, up to the point where only Fayette, Franklin, and Riley do not have the significant or moderate needs of immediacy. As we process all this information and we think about how are we going to address the modernization needs and all these deferred maintenance needs that have been put off through the years, I ask you to think about this question. In 2037, will the kindergarten students who started last August and just finished their first year of school in kindergarten, will they be learning in modernized learning spaces before they graduate? Or will we still be spinning our wheels about this issue? We are blessed with talented educators and talented students. They deserve to have modern learning spaces that enhance their learning experiences instead of diminishing them. I believe this community can stop spinning its wheels and start moving forward. I will continue working with the board to find answers to questions, synthesize the information we've gathered so far, and synthesize the feedback and information that we will continue to receive. The board and I will work together to develop a plan that addresses the many facility modernization and deferred maintenance plans that still need to exist, and do so by honoring the outstanding employees and students who use these spaces every day. And we need to develop this plan, and we'll figure out a way to do this in a way that balances the urgency of the action with the need to lessen the overall impact on the taxpayer and be cognizant of that. And we are thankful for Senator Good to open up the door for a conversation to be had. And if there's anyone interested in that conversation, I can say that this group is ready to have a conversation if there's a way to do that. There's a path to that. This does not mean that the levies won't increase, because there's a lot to do. But it is a commitment to stagger the work or to do other kinds of things so that we can reduce what we have to do in the future with preventive maintenance, and also figure out a way to still address all this neglect. Our kids have the talent to compete with anyone from anywhere. And as a community, we need to provide them with learning spaces that enhance that development of this talent so they can become the adults who make the possible reality. It's a tall task, but I believe that we as a community can get this done. So with that being said, I think we have public comment.
We do. At this time, it's the.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. At this time, it is time for our second call for citizen comments. Right now, I have 2 signed up. Please, if you have comments that you'd like to speak this evening, please sign up at the back with Mrs. Wilson, and we can do that. But at this time, I have Mr. Aaron Warner to speak on school infrastructure update. Welcome.
Members of the school board, Dr. Hensel, Ms. Catherine Hill. My name is Aaron Warner. I'm here to speak on behalf of the VCTA, the Vigo County Teachers Association. The VCTA has always appreciated our open and honest communication with the VCSC. We are confident that this will not change with the right sizing of corporation facilities. We hope to be present in guiding decisions as change is likely. Change can be uncomfortable, but we will do our best to do what is best for our students, teachers, schools, and our community, because we're all in this together. I'd also like to take this time to ask for the support from the citizens of Vigo County. Voters gave me various reasons for why they voted no in the last school referendum. Students were not the only ones to pay the price for that outcome. More than once, I've heard of lost opportunities to our county due to our lack of updating our educational infrastructure. Unfortunately, we are known for our lack of stellar facilities, not just high schools. I hope the corporation and community can take time to move and make the effort to move forward together to do what is best for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Jody Akinbo, and she is here to speak on our building plans. Welcome this evening.
Good evening. I'm sorry I wasn't planning on speaking at first, but I'm glad that I chose to speak up. My name is Jody Kimbo, and I come from a long line of educators in my family, many of which who spent their entire career in Vigo County. I call her my Aunt Peggy, but Peggy Frank was my second cousin, and she was the principal at, I believe, Consolidated Elementary, which was one of the schools that closed. And knowing firsthand, I spent my first 7 years of teaching in Vigo County. I started in 2007 at Terre Haute North Vigo under Mick Newport, who was one of the greatest people to work under. And the facility issues are nothing new. These things were present in 2007 when I worked there, and even before that when I was a student at Terre Haute North. I have 4 children. They've all gone through Vigo County School Corporation. I currently have one that graduated yesterday, and 2 more that are still in the school system. However, I did withdraw one of my students the last 9 weeks of school. And one of the things I want to say, there's so many things that I could say, talking about the facilities and all the things said tonight, but as an educator who's still an administrator in a different area, not one person reached out to me to say, why did you pull your student? Why did you withdraw them? And I've seen the decline of students. When I started, I was on a cart at Terre Haute North. There were not enough classrooms. There were too many teachers, too many students, not enough classrooms. And what I can say is, people don't pull their students because of facilities. They pull their students for other reasons. As a parent, I filled out a bullying form and never once had a response to it. That's one reason. That wasn't the only reason, but you know, when I taught at Deming Elementary School, the teachers there, we all brought our kids there, not because of the facility, but because we loved the students. We didn't get paid a lot. Our building wasn't the best, not in the best location in town, but it made a difference because we felt appreciated. We were a team. We loved the students. If you drive through the town, you will notice that a lot of kids live in very poor conditions. Not so much out in the county, but in the city, they don't care about the facilities. I know my eldest son is a student athlete, and I go to these big shiny schools. When you talk about across the state numbers, we're not a Carmel. We're not an MSD of Warren Township. We're not a Fort Wayne. We're not one of these giant school corporations. Consolidating the high schools would be a tragedy, especially for my son who's a current athlete. He would never get a chance to wrestle if North and South combined. My oldest daughter, she was a student athlete, and even at North back when she was in school, she barely got playing time. So there are just so many reasons, and I would love to continue the conversation. Plus, every student you lose, you're losing $10,000 of ADM on top of special education numbers if they have a special needs. You're losing a lot of money. I think that we do need to do something about facilities, but we need to look at other things too. And how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? So fix one building at a time and move on. Closing schools, you inherited a hurting community. We've gone through school closures, and it's not a popular thing, not for the teachers and not for the students.
Thank you.
Thank you. I do want to give a moment. Is there anyone else that would like to comment this evening? go ahead and come up and state your name and what you'd like to speak on, and then before you leave, sign up with Mrs. Wilson so we have your contact information. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Rick Stevens, and a former employee of Vigo County School Corporation for 40 years. So I guess I can say I've seen some ups and downs throughout the years. Tonight was a very educational night. I think the statistics that were presented have really been around for a while. And I think as we go forward, the time has really come to address the situation. You can't have 23 schools when you're going to go down to 12,500 kids. So I think the presentation, I kind of spoke forward about that, very focused, and I think that's a good thing. I think, if you look at a consolidation of a high school and a lot of numbers, I think you can provide a lot of programming, and a lot of good programming for all kids. Didn't hear anything about alternative education. I guess I'm still worried about kids we're losing, like the lady just talked about, going to homeschool. I think we can do a better job for kids if we have more continuum of education. The other thing I would say, you talk about community and being involved, and I think that's very important. I think surveys, questionnaires, anything you can do is very helpful. But community involvement, to me, if we're going to spend $300 million, community should be involved in the high schools too. There should be a space for our community to participate, and that's my understanding. Valparaiso has one of those things where the school can also, community can be involved in the schools and not have to sign a bunch of petitions or requests to get into the schools. So I think as you look forward, I think the time has come. Let's quit kicking the can down the road. Make the decision. Some people are going to agree. Some people are going to disagree. But if you do it thoughtfully and analytically, like the numbers up there, I think, how do you not come to a conclusion something has to be done? So I just want, probably thought the board might think, oh my, there's Rick Stevens, what is he going to say?
Oh, we didn't think that, Rick.
Maybe. So anyway, I really appreciate tonight, and this is the first board member meeting I've been to in a long time. Used to present at many of them, but I think the time has come to make the decision, and I think the information tonight should be helpful for everyone in the community.
You bring a good point up. When we went up and visited those schools north, the community was involved. And they were part of it, utilizing our structure of the school. They were there.
Right.
Yes.
And you're right. And that's part of this plan.
So when we talk about community engagement,
Yeah.
hopefully it's more than just VOCA. Hopefully it's physically into the schools and being part of that school.
Right.
So anyway, there's my 2 cents for tonight.
Thank you for coming. Thank you.
for letting me speak.
Is there anyone else that would like a chance to speak? You might want to come up and use the microphone. Okay, yes, please come up, Deb.
I didn't see a track at any of the middle schools.
Thank you. We will make that note. I think one thing just to keep in mind, these are just some questions to some what-ifs. They are not the plan. There is a lot more that goes into this. There's a lot more that we want to hear from our community. It's a start. I think this is a better start than our last referendum where we didn't have renderings, we didn't have drawings, we didn't have possibilities or questions to what-ifs. So I think we're starting off on a better foot with this to at least give you some idea of what we are looking at to help make that decision with your input. No other comments?
They're up 6-0. Good.
Terre Haute North up 6-0.
Thanks, John.
You know what inning it is?
You say we're up, or we're,
Yeah. Thank you for the
Thank
update,
you.
John.
Sounds like we
I
made-
think we have
I'm not going to
another,
jinx it. I'm not going to say any more.
I think we have another comment. Please just make sure after you speak that you sign up with Mrs. Wilson. Thank you.
I think you guys have a great challenge in front of you with the buildings. Excuse me, my name's Lorraine Cunningham. I'm a very well
I guess, educated here in Vigo County student, product of Vigo County School Corporation, although I took a interim out to Boone County for a number of years while I was a child. I don't remember coming back and the buildings being a huge thing. But I do remember being in the buildings, and at times Wilson, different ones were really hot, and there were some things. So, you know, anytime that it could be comforted. The one thing I'd like to hear about too a little bit is, as a graduate of North High School, Ivy Tech, and St. Mary's of the Woods, would be our school corporation retaining some of this education that we're doing and offering jobs to people of the community instead of shopping outside all the time. So that's the only comment I have. I wish you the very best, and thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming this evening. We hope to see you at other future meetings. Is there anyone else? Well, if you don't speak this evening, but you have comments or things, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at any time, or of course, any of our future board meetings or community forums. We are moving on in our agenda to our comments from the superintendent and information from board members.
Okay. I've spoken enough about the buildings, so what I'm going to do tonight is just remind us of the stuff I normally do. We are proud to celebrate the commencement exercises this past weekend of our graduates at Booker T, Washington, Vigo Virtual Success Academy, West Vigo High School, Terre Haute South Vigo High School, and Terre Haute North Vigo High School. Congratulations to our graduates also of the Adult Education Program who participated in their commencement exercise the previous week. Not only was it to celebrate the special moment with with all of our graduates, it was great to have live music back at them also, and we thank the bands for being there and to do that. Congratulations to the South High School girls tennis team on a great season. Despite falling in the semi-state match that would have determined who moved on to the state finals by a 3-2 match count, they did enjoy a great season, and we congratulate them. I also want to say congratulations to Jessica Kalobahavi. I apologize, Jessica, for mispronouncing your name, and Savannah Semler for qualifying for the upcoming state championship for the doubles teams. So they were one of the two matches that we had won. Congratulations to the West Vigo High School and North High School softball teams who each won their respective sectional championships. And if you're looking for some good softball, tomorrow night, each of the teams are hosting their respective regional game. Congratulations also to Jaylee Lindley for pitching a perfect game in the sectional championship game for West Vigo. Congratulations to our North baseball team who is playing for the sectional championship at this moment, apparently up 6-0 in the top of the 7th, according to someone in the crowd. At the previous board meeting, we recognized the North High School Band and Honey Creek Band for earning the ISMA All Music Award for the 2024-2025 school year. We have since learned that South High School Band also earned the ISMA All Music Award. In fact, it came the day after we got done announcing it for the others. So we wanted to make sure that we said congratulations to the South High School Band as well. And then congratulations to Leah Twitchell, who is the Vigo County School Corporation Teacher of the Year. She is a Title I teacher at Sugar Grove Elementary School.
We're now moving on to information for board members.
Katie, give me 2 minutes. Here we go. I got some bullet points. I'm speaking from the heart. Yeah, give me 2 minutes. These comments are only from Rick, okay? Not from any other board member. They got their thoughts, but I'm proud to serve on this board. You've heard me say that before, and I'm proud to work with this superintendent we have as a leader and his cabinet. I'm proud to represent the 2,200 employees we have that work hard every day, and our 12,500 students. My ask to this community, be open on your thoughts. Be respectful, please. And have a vision for the future. Have a vision. As a community, we gotta come together here and work together. It's not just this board, it's all of us. By working together, history will be made here for this community. We can no longer, in my opinion, do status quo. I didn't get up here and be elected to do status quo. Did not. And if you're not on that boat with me, I'm your wrong guy. We owe this to our community and students to be the best we can be. And again, I want to come back to the 2,200 employees that we have. They're doing a great job, because I see it every day. We all see it. And I want to remind you again, this is a community decision. Don't point the finger at all of us. It's all of us. Please understand, a decision has not been made, and we're analyzing all this stuff. And a lot of people out there think you've already made your mind up. Bull. We have not. But we're going to walk this road together. And Rick, I appreciate your comments. Thank you. But we all have to come together and work. I encourage you to come to these forums that we're going to have. Watch, listen, come out and share your thoughts. And in closing, I'd like to thank state legislators, city, county, chamber, and other community members. Folks, we got people out there who want to do something, and we've got to. I've got grandkids, we're going to stay here. We're investing in this community, but we got to make it happen. And in closing, just be open to our plan. We have no plan, but we've got a lot of work to do. We do. And just take this journey with us. Let's do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Just gonna go on down the line.
You can go on down the line, that works, that works for me.
I just want to second everything Rick said, but also just add, for me, I joined this school board because I am a community mind person, right? And each one of us sitting up here, you guys elected us to do a job, right? And although during election season, you talk about all the things that you want to do and all of that, and we talk to so many people, but then when we get up here and we are faced with some of these big decisions, and I can only speak for myself, I'm learning those numbers and the things that were talked about tonight, and to see where the decreases are and how much it is, and then coming off of a weekend high of the graduations. That was my first opportunity to be able to do that. And I realized that I will be able to give my own daughter her certificate of graduation, being a board member, as I was sitting and watching those children come across there. And that was a great realization for me, to know that everything that we are doing up here, we are doing it for all of the children out there, not just our own. A lot of us have children, grandchildren, that are going to go through there.
Am I that old? You
Yes.
pointed at me.
Yes. You said grandchildren, I didn't. But like Rick already said, and someone else said earlier, this is not a school board decision, right? We have to vote yes or no, right? Those are the logistics of it. But things need to be done. That's not a secret, right? We have got to stop with the negativity of, just what, we know what needs to be done, all right? And if we just come together, come to these forums, ask questions. If you have questions, if you hear things and it doesn't sound right, ask a question, email one of us. We would be glad to give you the correct information if we have it. If we don't have it, we're gonna find it out, right? But I'm a firm believer in positivity. Negativity spreads so much quicker than positivity does, right? If we're gonna be a true committee or a true community, we have to have unity in everything that we do. Come to the forums, ask questions. If you don't understand, keep asking. I am very grateful that I get to sit here in this seat. I am very grateful that I get to be a part of the future for Vigo County. We're gonna have big change, right? We just don't know what that change is gonna look like, right? We have an opportunity, we have several opportunities right in front of us to make this community wonderful. So let's just do it together.
Amen.
What's the definition of insanity?
Ooh. Ooh.
Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. It's kind of a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason. It's our privilege to reinvent. It's our privilege to innovate and to do something that will have a lasting benefit for this community. We have, Stacy and I at least, since we're the old fogies in terms of tenure on the school board, we have been here to welcome, forgive me, Chris, you can plug your ears if you want to, brilliant superintendent. I am privileged to work with him. I think we all are. I think working with him is a master class in school administration. We have new organization in our central office. We have the beginnings of new culture with our high reliability schools. And when I say new culture and high reliability schools, yeah, that's a program and everybody's working through it, but I'm talking about I come into central office for my one-on-one meetings or for whatever, and I start to see chins going up and brightness in people's eyes. I start to have more conversations that are positive. I start to get feedback in the community that's like, hey, that's good. And they're surprised, and I'm thrilled to get that feedback. And it's so, so good. I'm gonna also say we have done major things. We have new legal counsel in the school district that represents to me just a sea change in our direction. And now we have this complete feasibility study on our facilities. The one that we had, we were able to build on, but it wasn't enough. And I was green as a school board member when that was coming through. I'm not green anymore. And this board has been asking really tough questions, really good ones, and we've been looking in at the details, and we need to hear from you. Please do not be afraid. Please do not think, oh, I'm not gonna bother them, but I will post it on social media. That's not helpful. A conversation is helpful. I really like coffee. And if you want to have coffee, I won't even make you buy it, okay? Like, I'll buy my own coffee and we'll sit and talk. And I think all of us have that desire to hear from people, especially the ones who are most impacted, parents, teachers, administrators. But look, we're in a situation where everything in public education is shifting. It's just constant change. And we have fewer students and more choice than at any other point in our history. And if we're not in front of it, if we don't innovate, we stagnate. If we stagnate, we're insolvent. And that is failure, and it's unacceptable. So learning from failure is one thing. I think we've analyzed it to death. And I'm ready to have a win for Vigo County with all of you, and I'm ready for that to start with the schools.
Thank you, Mrs. Lohr. Just to be reminded, Amy and I are the oldest serving members of Vigo County School Board right now, with 4.5 years under our belts. We are a new young board. We were not here when things took place in the past. We were here for the failed referendum, yes. We are here and committed to continue this work with you. I think one thing we need to be reminded of, this plan that we need moving forward, we want it to be community-driven. We want to listen to you because you are who love our kids. We have teachers here, I know we do. We have administrators, I see you. Thank you. We have community members with our chamber, with our commissioners, with our mayor was here earlier. Thank you. Thank you for being here. I have never seen so much support in one room that we need as a board, and we need you with us. So I know there are scary things moving forward. We had comments today about, combining schools is not great. We're all gonna have differing opinions. I think being civil and sharing those differing opinions is only gonna make us stronger in what we need to do moving forward. I will throw a little bit out there. We are the 11th largest school corporation in the state of Indiana. We are one of a handful of full county school corporations. That's very rare in the state of Indiana. We're not only rural, but we are urban. We have a lot of issues placed before us with also a river that runs right through us and separates us. We need to come together to have a school identity that we can be proud of and work forward from. And we need everyone on board. Yes, well, we might not get our way in every single thing moving forward, absolutely. But is it something we can all come together on and build upon for our kids? I was part of that delegation that got to see other schools to go through, and we see we are Valpo. Why can't we have that? We are VCSC. We can be our individualities, but also one. And we need to do that. And the only way that's going to come across is if our adults in the rooms making the decisions can portray that to our kids. And so I'm urging, begging you to please walk this with us. We are here, we're ready to listen, we're ready to work. We have an amazing leader in Dr. Himsel, who I have every confidence in that we are moving in the right direction. Please reach out, come play a part in this with us. Thank you.
Yes, it's my turn. So I work, I have the privilege to work at our public library, and one thing we talk a lot about there is the consideration of time horizons. And I think I've mentioned this before in some of our meetings, but, you know, like I might think of things year to year, or someone that comes into my building might think of things like, you know, they may worry week to week. Can they pay the bills? Can they feed their kids? Or even day to day, some of our customers struggle with that. And so I think something that, when I'm thinking about the plans that have been presented or our options, and, you know, I asked the question about the timeline, whether it's renovation, whether it's a new high school, just the timeline of that, I think we as a community need to work together to break that down to any community member, no matter what their situation is. Because I think when you live paycheck to paycheck, voting for $1 million referendum seems crazy, let alone a $100 million referendum. And so I think if we as a community, whatever the plan is agreed on and voted on moves forward, we all need to think about how can we communicate that to our neighbors, to the parents we're friends with, in a timeline that works for them and their schedule. And I think that, to me, I think is the biggest thing that maybe we learned from the last referendum is that communication piece, to get the community on board and to get the community behind things. So when they say, you know, 3 years for a new high school, so referendum next year if we need it, approval, greenlit, 2027, you're not looking at a new building until at least 2030. Well, if you think about that, my son's going into 5th grade next year. He would get to see that high school. So like it's you think about it and you break it down to parents of like, okay, what grade is your kid in? Okay, he's in 2nd. He could graduate from a brand new high school, or he could graduate or attend a middle school that has all new science rooms. And so I think if we as a community think about it, when you're looking at options, when you're thinking about do we need to switch the format of some of our buildings, you know, how can we break that down in a way that those parents and those community members can see that as attainable and not just the big ticket price that you see or the giant, you know, master plan of all these facilities and how we have to lay out that phasing to, you know, work within our limitations and not over stress our tax base. So I think for me, that's the biggest thing I would like to ask the community to work with us on is that communication piece and to consider like, how do we best motivate our community to improve these facilities while also reminding them that it is going to take a while.
It's never great being first to last, especially when you work with a group that have the same mindset. So you're probably going to hear a lot of duplicate from them. Mr. Berger made the statement that this is a community decision, which it is. But I want everyone to also slow down and think about how this is also a community investment, okay? This is not only for the corporation, this is also for the county and where we all live and where we all go shop and where we work and where we want to bring it to the highest level that we possibly can. If you looked at the feasibility study, it showed that we have multiple buildings with significant immediate needs, which I think is quite striking. The can has been kicked down the road for many years. We did upkeep, but it wasn't enough. And I've got one ask for the community. My ask is to, number one, have an open mind. That's been stated a couple times as you went down the row. But don't be afraid to change. What I want everyone sitting in this room and everyone listening and everyone in the community to think is, be afraid of what the change could be if we do nothing. Because I think that's the most important thing to fear. Because if we do nothing, where will we be in 5 years? Where will we be in 10 years? Where will we be in 15 years? Because it's not going to be a good place. So my ask is, have an open mind and be open to change. Don't be fearful of that in any shape or way.
Time flies. To put this in perspective, the kids that will benefit most from the decisions we make now, their parents haven't been born yet. That's the reality. We're looking 50, 60 years doing it. So think about this. In World War II, there were 19 high schools in Vigo County. I would have been in the first sophomore class to have been at South. My dad was a principal and moved. But we were always in awe when we came to schools up here, because when we moved over to Clay County and then to Greene County, I mean, the schools were, 80 years old. I mean, they were nothing. So we came up here and this was really, something. My wife taught in Sullivan County. She wanted to teach in Vigo County, but back then, we had so many teachers wanting to come in, it was really hard. But in '87, we made a decision to move across out of the county line from our farm to move into Vigo County, so our kids could go to Lost Creek and to Woodrow Wilson and to North. But in '87, we didn't see these cracks yet. We weren't seeing what was happening in terms of population and things. And hindsight's always 20/20, and it doesn't do any good to point fingers or say it was somebody else. I don't think anybody in either 74 or 87 would ever have thought we were going to have 12,500 kids or less. I mean, it was a shock. So we can't go back and say, oh, you should have known instead of building these buildings. Well, we built them. We have them. And now we ask the new superintendent to think outside the box. I hate that idea. I hate that word, that phrase. But to think about how can we be not just competitive, how can we be the best school in the area? And I think we're on the road.
I've got more.
Oh.
No, I don't.
Yes, you do.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you for being a part of this with us. I just have to say, my youngest graduated yesterday from North, and I just want to thank this board. You were so supportive of me and just caring. I had a little bit of a rough start, but I love serving with the six of you. I love serving with Dr. Himsel. I appreciate this team, and I hope you will too. So just thank you for all that you do for our kids. Thank you for what you've done for my son. And moving on from that, our future meeting is June 23rd, 6 p.m. here at the Conference Center, and we hope to see you moving forward. So thank you. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
Move to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.